The full moon suddenly appeared low over the trees. The front lawn lit up as if someone had turned on a spotlight. The stocky figures swung their short, fat arms and began to run. Their pointed hats cut through the air like shark's fins. They scrambled toward us on their stumpy legs. Moose and I dropped to our knees and tried to hide. My whole body was trembling so hard. I was making the bush shake. The gnomes ran closer, so close that I could see the dark red of their evil eyes and the white gleam of their grins. I clenched my fists so tightly, my hands ached. What are they going to do to us?
You can't scare me, not with the basement of botany. Maybe a sentient dummy calling all creeps.
Boo, my dudes. Welcome to Calling All Creeps. It's a podcast that is about goosebumps. I am of course, the big C here with the little c.
Hey, what's up? I'm the tiny lowercase c.
Little c, I have a question for you. Have you ever made a bush shake?
That's private question. Hey.
We know Joe has.
Joe sure has.
He sure has. But we won't get into that yet. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm fine. I'm kind of done with this shit.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'm feeling. I was like not okay with it because obviously it's terrible, but like I felt like, I don't know, like I could make do just being at home. That's kind of what I do anyway. But now that we're on like week 6 or 7 or whatever,
especially it's hard
arduous.
to get food. I've had so many like oven
Yeah.
pizzas that I've been making do.
Me
If you know what I mean.
You made do before this episode, right?
I did. Did you?
I did.
We've been making do.
Yeah, I made myself sick. I told you. I put Dave through the ringer on recording this because I drank myself to, fucking illness on Friday night because I'm a stupid man, and that's what stupid men do. And I think it's time to I'm just going to take a break. Like we were talking before the episode started, it's so easy with all your idle time. You got booze laying around. You just have some cocktails, have some beers, whatever. And I just have this low level inflammation at all times because of it. And then finally I just pushed too far and my body just rejected it. And I'm an adult man. Like I shouldn't. And I've done this before. So it's that's the worst part for me. Is the day after I experience such deep anxiety and shame.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Same.
not that big of a deal. Everybody does it, but I think it also it worsens my imbalances. I get I don't know if it's an electrolyte thing or it affects your serotonin somehow, but it's rock bottom for me the next day. It sucks. So this is the next day after that. Not feeling amazing, but definitely a lot better.
But looking great.
Thanks, baby. Anyway, after that lively, cheery conversation.
Well, you're just doing what the president says. The only way to get rid of the Rona is to...
I was trying to kill the Roni.
With all the alcohol. You're supposed to use cleaner, apparently.
Well, I'm saving all the juice at the bottom of the Clorox wipe bottles. You know how it collects and the last wipe is unusable?
Yeah. Oh, I still reach in there and grab that slimy little diaper and just slap it around my sink. That's the one, that final one, that's the one I use for the toilet seat. You know what I mean.
Yep. Yeah, now I'm just going to wring it out into a glass. Just fucking shoot it.
Wear that as a mask and just chloroform yourself.
That's right.
Yeah. So, Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes.
Yeah, sure is. This is an iconic-ish one.
Sure is. This is one that I read maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I think, with my cousin. I have a cousin named Anthony who we, since he was a youngin', we would mail each other garden gnomes for every Christmas and
I know about this.
birthday. We both have birthdays around the same time, summer. And so we thought this was funny. And we did that. But so I think it's still at my parents' house, and some here. I still have some horrifying gnomes that we send to each other. That super fun. So this was always a fun one. And then of course we watched the episode. Another way to take this in, very different from the book. I was expecting more of the TV show than the actual source material when I was reading through this. And I don't know which one's better. I feel like,
Did you watch it today?
I did watch it today again,
Yeah.
just to make sure that all of my plot points were real.
And it wasn't, I don't really remember it other than, as you said, they use little people for it.
Little people and children at one point. Because there's like a bunch of gnomes chasing the kids through the woods at one point.
Right.
And you can tell that some are just children squatting down next to the little people.
Yeah. Is that problematic?
No, I don't think so.
They just fit the bill, though.
I mean, if you need to get like a gnome kind of creature, then like, you know, and they didn't have a budget like Lord of the Rings. They're not going to Gimli somebody and like go back in. And a lot of these little people have careers based off that, like Warwick Davis.
Yeah, doing elves and whatnot.
He is like the premier little person actor. Warwick Davis, who is famously Wicket, the Ewok.
Right. Yeah.
He has appeared as so many characters in the Star Wars universe, even as himself in Rogue One. They gave him like a big gun and stuff. Like, he's awesome.
That's cool.
Very cool guy. He appeared as himself. He was hanging out in Watto's like pod racing little booth when they're watching it. He's hanging out there in Phantom Menace. So there's a lot of people that kind of like, they're like character actors where you know who they're going to play and what they are, but they're like well respected, and he's probably one of the top. And fun thing, I was going to get to it later, Jordan Prentice, who played Hap, one of the gnomes, actually also played Howard the Duck in George Lucas's Howard the Duck Marvel comic disaster of a movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. But so this book came out in August of 1995.
Wow.
So let's do the music, which we brushed upon the last episode. Because Batman Forever came out, the song this month was Kiss from a Rose by Seal.
Oh, so tell me your story today. Ooh, kiss me on my butthole at May.
And then the top movie was the first Mortal Kombat.
Oh, boy. Okay. Which is an interesting combination. What a wild time, the 90s.
That's a movie that our good buddy Justin and I revisit every couple years. Yeah. We just decide to watch Mortal Kombat or Mortal Kombat Deception because those movies are just fucking crazy.
Yeah. Then they're always on something. Like they're always on Netflix or Hulu or one of them.
I bet the director of this is like the owner of Spike TV. Because that's like all they play. That makes sense.
That fits the profile.
I bet there's somebody right now that's quarantined in their bunker with just a lifetime supply of Mountain Dew Gamer Fuel and every single Mortal Kombat DVD and novelization.
And they're doing fine, baby.
And it's me. On August 8th, Gangster's Paradise was released by Coolio.
Hey, that's great. I used to love that song.
I still love that song.
It's a great like melody. Like the backing track's dope.
The choir? Hells yeah.
It's very dramatic. What was that? It was for a movie, wasn't it?
I don't even know.
It was like what's her face? Not Sharon Stone. Michelle Pfeiffer maybe? It was some like she was like a teacher in a bad part of town or some shit. I forget.
I mean, I think the song stands alone. Dangerous Minds.
Dangerous Minds.
Yeah, Dangerous Minds.
We got there.
On August 9th, Jerry Garcia died of a heart attack at 53.
And now he lives on in Cherry Garcia, one of my favorite Ben & Jerry's flavors, a pint which I ate the entirety of this past week in
That's
one
awesome.
sitting. It's
that
great.
Would give me a lot of diarrhea. And it's crazy because
I did not feel good.
He died of a heart attack. His heart exploded into a rainbow, and a bunch of tiny bears flew out.
Oh, that's great.
And ran around.
And they jammed for 7 hours.
Some say he didn't die, but he's still jamming in what seems like purgatory.
That's right.
Do you know John Mayer is in Grateful Dead?
Yes, I did hear that.
Pretty crazy. He's very good. I went friend of the show, Kevin Biggie. He is a huge Grateful Dead fan, And I went to his place one time. There was a live concert. It was really neat.
Yeah.
They use like all the old kind of like TV effects on it and stuff. And John Mayer is a funny guy who can shred. Also, he kissed Taylor Swift, so
yeah, that's
cool by me.
Yeah, I know he's an asshole, but I think he also is like kind of refined himself a little bit with age, and he is super talented.
Yeah, he is. On August 19th, Mickey Mantle died of liver cancer at 63.
Okay,
Famous Yankee.
Sure.
And on August 24th, Windows 95 debuted.
Hey, bing bang. Bing bong.
Minesweeper.
Minesweeper. Heard of it?
You ever paint?
You ever use a paint? You dummy?
On the computer? Dumbass. You're a dummy.
Man, I shout out listener of the show, friend of the pod, Judy, showed me. She was playing like I'm going to use the word mod. That's not correct. Some like generator that produces old games on the computer. And you ever play that like downhill ski one? It was like
Ski Free.
Ski Free. Yes.
Hells yeah.
She was playing that, and I was like, I saw it, and I had forgotten about it until that moment. It was like it spanned 25 years since I thought about it.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Do you think Bill Gates knows how to get past that Yeti at the end?
Yeah, I think he's figured it out by now.
He probably figured it out by now.
You ever see that appalling thing? Like, I think culture has turned on Ellen DeGeneres, and we now recognize her as like a fucking scoundrel. But she had this segment with Bill Gates where he tries to like guess the price of like household items, and it's just fucking appalling. Like, it's so insulting. I just like, it shouldn't exist.
Yeah,
she's rich too. Like, she shouldn't participate in it. It was just like he thought like a roll of paper towels was like $27. It's like like, I know that he does good things, but there are also, as we know, no good billionaires, and it's just like, it's too much. Like, get the shit out of here. Like, it makes you feel bad.
I love that everybody's shitting on Ellen because she's like, I feel like I'm in prison, and then there's like photos of her in her giant mansion. There's people working for her. And she wants to, she's like, we really need to get back to the show because my crew and stuff, like, I really need to take care of them.
Give me a fucking break.
No, but meanwhile, she's filming at her house and she hired a different crew to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
She's full of shit.
Even before this, like, all stories of everybody who has ever worked for Ellen in any capacity is like, yeah, she's a fucking monster. And then on top of that, all these allegations of her stolen material. It's like, just get out of here.
I mean, you're basically just filling a hole that Rosie O'Donnell left after the 90s.
Just give me a TV for free and go home.
Yeah. Fuck off, Ellen.
Fuck off. Official statement of Calling All Creeps podcast.
By the way, when you were saying a friend of the pod who listens to it, I thought you were going to say Bill Gates. Like, immediately. I was waiting for it. Bill Gates isn't okay. Like, out of all the billionaires and millionaires, it's crazy because you can only invent the, like, iPhone or Windows so many times because like the only other way to get there is to like genocide
for all those like precious materials.
Well, like people who there's some of the people that own most of New York City real estate like got their money by mining and completely polluting rivers in Africa that actually went downstream and killed entire like towns of people. Yeah,
there are always like horrendous effects that nobody cares about or thinks about.
Well, no, they knew about it, but they were like, are there any laws against it? They're like, no. They're like, all right, fine, just make me $1 billion and murder this entire civilization.
And like exploit local labor and stuff.
Yeah. Just like Gnomes and when they have revenge.
Yes.
Brought it back.
Excellent segue.
This book does have a human trafficking section.
Yeah.
So this book has been reprinted 3 separate times outside of the first one, including a standalone vintage Target print in 2015.
Okay.
So it was like original cover, except it had a little like only a Target sticker on it.
Okay.
Which was interesting that they did that, probably for the movie. In UK, they changed the name to Revenge of the Garden Gnomes.
Okay.
Don't know why.
Pedantic.
Yeah. Also, this appeared in the graphic novel form in Goosebumps graphics, which a few of them have. a graphic novel done by a few people, just kind of short adaptations of the stories. This is something we learned when we saw Tim Jacobus and RLS, that
I'm
this
so glad you're bringing this up.
was edited. Would you like to discuss?
Sure. So if you take a gander at the cover, you don't have to, but if you'd like to participate, please do. I'll give you a moment to bring it up on Google Image Search. Search seal singer penis.
Does that actually come up?
I mean, it might.
Please hold 1 second. Private browsing. All right. You discuss that while I Google this.
Okay. So Dave's going to bring up seal's penis. And now make sure, Dave, that it's not an actual seal's penis, because that's not right. So this has two little buddies, two little gnomes. And, you find that bad boy?
On Jezebel.com, this is the title. Heidi Klum tells Oprah about Seal's giant black cock.
Knew it.
He's also 10 of Hollywood's most well-endowed men.
Okay. Good for him.
Way to go, Seal.
All right. I knew that would yield something. So we have two little guys on the cover. They look pretty menacing. There's a deer with them, other lawn ornaments. So, and they are described in the book. So some flamingos on either side. There's like a holy grail, like crystal orb on a pedestal. And these guys are chilling. The front gnome is just straight chilling, hanging out, got his arm on the deer, just kind of resting. The guy behind him has his finger like near his eye, sort of like resting his head in his hand, with a finger pushing up the corner of his eye, and like poking his buddy. I'm not really sure what he's doing, but he looks like a dumbass. And the reason that he looks especially dumb there is because originally Tim Jacobus told us he was having a bit of fun with this cover, and he put that second gnome's finger in his little nose there, digging for gold, Dave. Digging for gold. And the publisher said, like, you can't do that because it's inappropriate, ? So he had to sort of revise it and just put his hand on the side of his head there, which is fine, but it would have been fun to... these are, as we learned, mischief gnomes. Sorry to, get ahead of myself. But it would just be fun to have a bit of, whimsy in doing this cover. But it is an iconic cover, and I do like, the color scheme's cool. The gnomes come across kind of nice.
Very good.
Yes, thank you, Dave.
Thank you for filling us in on that.
Of course.
On top of that, Marion Burton, the mom, is the first mom with a full name in all of the books. Kind of crazy.
Oh, okay. Marion's a nice name. That's like an old, 50s starlet name or something.
And then when it comes to the differences with the TV show, there is no dog, Buster, or Moose, the friend who's...
the meaty boy.
Only in the audiobook a little problematic, but we'll get to that. And it has a different ending, which we'll get to at the end. Mr. McCall is portrayed more like the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket in the show.
Okay.
To the point where he's wearing fatigues and has the sunglasses and is basically...
Oh, my God.
And anytime, he shows up on the screen, it's like... Like, you hear, the trumpets in the background. Like, it's very intense. He is played by David Hemblem, which is the bad guy from Rollerball and the voice of Magneto in the X-Men cartoon.
Okay.
He was also the character Dr. Blade in a movie called Booty Call. He was Shere Khan in the Jungle Book, and he was the bad guy from Captain Power, which was a cartoon in the 80s.
Sure.
Yeah, and then as we said, Hap was played Howard the Duck, Jordan Prentice.
All right.
So as we were talking, audiobooks. So this had 2 audiobooks. It had one in 1996 that was produced by Disney, which had Justin Shankarow, which I only know him as Harold from Hey Arnold. But it also had voices done by Charlie Adler, who is a Paterson, New Jersey native, who is the voice of Starscream from Transformers, the Hamburglar, Buster Bunny from Tiny Toons, Ed and Bev Bighead from Rocko's Modern Life, and Itkiss from Our Real Monsters.
Okay, that's cool.
And there was also the new one, which was an audiobook made by Scholastic in 2015. The voices are done by Maxwell Glick, who I looked at his IMDb and he really hasn't done much. But when I Googled him, there was a photo of him with Taylor Swift. So he must be a pretty nice guy.
He keeps good company.
But he made me a little... so, audiobooks. You're working, I'm working from home. I got Animals to Cross on my Switch. I've been playing Fortnite again. Didn't really before. I'm real good now. So sometimes you just need your hands free and your eyes free. So why not take an adventure into the audiobook?
Yeah, I was very happy you sent this to me, Dave. I did listen as I was unloading and reloading the dishwasher, not to brag. And I listened to a few chapters. I found it mildly insufferable, which I guess is an oxymoron, but I didn't really enjoy it. What I did enjoy is what you shouted out initially, which is when you start this audiobook, which is available on Spotify.
It is.
You get a wonderful introduction by our boy RLS. He does his classic, "Hello, I'm R.L. Stein."
He's like, somebody's smashing melons.
Yeah. Yes. He reads the back cover, which is about smashing melons and squashing tomatoes. And it's just a beautiful, wholesome check-in from our boy. And I did like that. And it was, I listened to, I think, the first 3 chapters, which is like 4 pages. And, it was a nice introduction to it. But I did enjoy reading it more than listening.
Same. So I kind of went in and out. I read the first 40 pages and then re-listened to them with the audiobook, then listened on in the audiobook for another like 30, 40 pages, then went back to reading, then went back to the audiobook, then went back to reading. So I kind of went in and out. Because I didn't want all of it to be audiobook, because it paints a picture for you with the voices, because our buddy was the Glick. Yes, Taylor Swift's friend, Maxwell Glick.
Oh, Glick.
Go to Glickler. He kind of gives you the voices and the character for you. Yeah. And a lot of the time, RLS has these weird sentences that are kind of like, I don't know, when you're reading them, they're hard to get through. And other times, they kind of paint a picture. But how he reads them, it just kind of like feels like, I don't know, he's like pandering to children, which is the whole point.
It is, but I agree. It's way too put on. Like he does Mindy, Joe's sister's voice, like a stereotypical, like if I were to imitate a woman's voice right now, it's like, it's just not necessary.
If I were to imitate a woman's voice right now.
And he does it like a caricature, and it's just like, it's a bit much.
But the worst is Moose's voice. So this is what I say is problematic.
Get there, I don't think.
You have to listen to it, because it was to the point where I read through and I was like, Moose, his like meathead, crazy big friend. Then I listened to the same part again, and I was like, this is the problematic part. I'm like, is Moose supposed to be like
differently
like
abled?
Yeah. To the point where I thought Moose basically had the same problematic feel that like What? Oh my God! I'm drawing a blank. The guy from the Goonies, Sloth from the Goonies. Sure. Yeah. He acted more like that, and the voice, he's just kind of like, like super moose, like everything he says. And I realized, I'm like, wow, he's just repeating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And he's like, we play ping pong, like it's. And
Which
he's
is
just
not really even what I got from Moose. Like I got he was like a like a big hulking, like kind of like a bull in a china shop, but he's not like, he's like not out of his mind.
He keeps jumping up and down on a table, and he's like, super moose, soup. And I'm like, he made it sound like it was like somebody with like Down syndrome.
Yeah.
How he did the voice and stuff. And I was like, and then I read it, and later Moose has some like, like apt observations about things going on, and like says things, but how he talks and explains it and just adds like a cadence to the dialogue that just makes him seem like this like hollow-headed, like, I don't know, weird character. It was very strange. So that's why I didn't really want any of the big plot points or introduction of characters to be with the audiobook, but kind of have it as a comparison and contrast to what we were reading.
Yeah. Yeah, because it adds this patina to how you see the characters, and that's just like, keep it. Like, let us decide, like you were saying.
Yeah. So what we're saying, if you really want to get your goosebumps mouth wet, we all know where that mouth is.
Yeah, wet your whistle.
Yeah, don't listen to the audiobooks. Listen to us explaining them poorly.
Yeah, and it'll be abbreviated too, because that audiobook's like almost 3 hours.
Yeah. Crazy.
Whereas you can read one in like an hour, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know, it takes more time and not worth the journey. There are parts that are, I guess, but especially the RL introduction is a treat. But
yeah, just listen to that. Also, like, we're 25 minutes in and we haven't even started the book, but like, we've just been having fun.
That's right. You've
been enjoying yourself. Yeah.
In general, I think of this podcast as a burden, and
sometimes.
But in these times of isolation and quarantine, I'll tell you what, it's a real treat to hang out with my buddy Dave and to broadcast to 6 people who listen.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's great.
We get over $100 on each episode.
Hell yeah, you hear that? Let's go, sponsors.
There were a lot of sponsors. That's the fun part, too, of listening to it, because every now and then there'd be a commercial where it would just be like, hey, complete the census. It makes sure that our schools have cool places. Yeah. It's like people at a basketball game talking about why it's cool to complete the census.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
We could do that. We could do government, pay us. We'll do a census commercial, whatever. I'll say, Dave, how many balls do you have?
And I'll say, well, that question wasn't in the census, but I made sure to rub my scrot all over the envelope before mailing it back. Just kidding. I did it online.
I listened to I have, not to brag, but straight up brag, I have Mark, Tom, and Travis show on vinyl from Blink-182.
Is it the double LP rainbow see-through set?
No.
Well, don't mean to brag, but that's the one I have.
That's amazing. No, this is just black. It's 180 gram vinyl, but it's just black vinyl.
No.
But there's, it's insane, and again it does rub you the wrong way, because in the early 90s, or not the early 90s, the early aughts and the late 90s, their joke, as we've said before, is like, Mark and Tom are gay. Isn't that funny? But they're not. Yeah. It's just like, that's the punchline. Like, that's the
thesis
whole joke.
Is literally, wouldn't it be funny?
Yeah,
if we or your dad happened, perhaps, to be homosexuals.
Yeah. Do you mind if I suck your grandpa's dick? And then it's like, they play like a bumpkin melody for 2 seconds.
Yeah. I bet Grandpa would just be happy to have the attention. No one really visits him.
I think so. Yeah, just to feel something.
Yeah.
But, oh shit, where was I going with this? I lost it. Let's move on.
You basically were just like, I don't want to show off, but I have a Blink-182 vinyl.
Yeah, it was something that Mark says, and it remind like the I know what it was. It was they talk about jacking off, and
careful.
I'm going to sidestep anything here, but Mark was like, that's what you say when your parents come into your room and you're masturbating. You just say, I was just cleaning it and it went off.
Isn't it bad that that's exactly? I was like, I knew the joke immediately.
Yep.
Which is crazy because it's like fucked up gun humor.
It is.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's
that's
good.
Fine.
It's good for a chuckle.
Now he's looking for aliens and owns a company for that.
That's true.
So on page 1, Joe loves smashing balls into his sister's face.
Oh boy, does he. Casaba melons, right? Was that it?
They're playing ping pong.
Oh, that's right.
And we get an RLS trope immediately.
Yes.
That he is not like his family, who is tall, skinny, and blonde. He is short and, quote, pudgy.
Yeah. Very gnome-like.
Very gnome-like.
Indeed.
And Mindy is organized, and Joe is not because, quote, he is cool.
Yeah, there is a lot of early emphasis on Mindy having obsessive compulsive disorder, and then they just abandon it. It's just useless information.
Well, there's one point where he goes to her. He's like, "Yeah, I was grounded, so I just went and like moved all of her clothes so she would have like a breakdown."
Yeah,
it's whatever. RLS learns about new dogs in this one.
Yeah, what is Buddy is? What is that? His name, Buddy?
Buster.
Buster.
Do we have to bleep that out? No, I think we can keep it.
No, we will overcome it, Dave, and we'll leave in Buster.
Come again?
I was just saying that we should continue to talk about the plot.
Okay. So Buster is a Rottweiler.
Yes, that's right. And, Buster's a good old boy, but he loves to dig up Mr. McCall's garden, Dave. And Mr. McCall is the drill sergeant neighbor, as you emphasize. Do they mention that he was, like, in the army or something in this book?
They do. Yeah,
okay.
He's, like, ex-military. They also mention that it's, like, they're in Montana.
Right.
Which is weird.
Because there's, like, no bases or anything there? Is that...
No, I just think it's weird that they were like, by the way, we're in Montana and we do gardening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and
they did specify. Sometimes they just straight up don't give a location.
Yeah. But it's fine.
But yeah, so the idea is that Joe's dad and Mr. McCall, the neighbor, have like competing gardens, and they take a lot of pride in their gardening and what they grow and lawn ornaments and whatever. And the problem initially is that Buster likes to go over to Mr. McCall's garden. He's like an outside dog, and he has a dog house. It's like, I don't know if I guess people do that. I feel like most dogs are just inside dogs.
Or like you let them outside.
Yeah, to do their business, and
I don't think it's
live
like
with you.
Yeah, but like some people have like dog houses, they can go in and out and as they please and hang in the backyard. But I don't think it's like go to bed in your dog house outside,
like Snoopy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But whatever. So like the dog's out a lot, and it goes into the garden and likes to like dig it and stuff, and like eat a melon or two. Well, not even a melon, because Joe actually specifies that he doesn't like melons, but whatever. The dog like fucks around in there, and Mr. McCall, says, "I'm going to euthanize your dog because I'm a monster."
Pretty much. It's like, I'm going to call the cops to come and shoot your dog with guns.
Right. It's like, that RL wants to put in here that Mr. McCall is stacked with weapons and semi-automatics, and will just blow this dog away, but he doesn't.
But they're playing ping pong in the basement, and then Moose comes over.
Yeah.
And
Mr. McCall's son.
Yeah, and Joe's not really playing fair. He's just hitting the ball as hard as he can and kicking it at her, and he's like, "I'm winning," and she's fucking sucks. Yeah. And she just wants to play by the rules, but I make my own rules, and this is kind of crazy. We get our first real unreliable narrator, because this is a first-person book.
Yeah.
And he basically is talking like, I don't know why my sister's treating me this way. I'm just doing this, which is cool. But
yeah,
as you're reading it, you're like, oh no, you're just a piece of shit.
Yeah, he's
fuck
an asshole.
you, Joe.
Yeah,
which is done really well in the beginning.
Yeah, and we've gotten this from RL before, where like the tone and personality of the character is sort of infused in the narrative, but in here, you're right, it is like elevated a little more, where it's like, I don't want your fucking opinion on like how you're treated and stuff. Like, just tell us what's going on.
And the first person side of it really helps because it's in his head, and of course he has that bias towards himself. Right. But you get it. You're like, no, you suck.
Mm-hmm. So like Mindy's fine.
Mindy's just she doesn't do normal, good person.
Yeah.
And then Moose comes over and destroys their ping pong ball, and then is jumping on their table and destroying it, and then holds down Joe and almost strangles him to death. Yeah,
and that's how the chapter ends, with Moose murdering Joe. And then the next chapter, Mindy is horrified and begging this man to stop killing her poor brother. And
Very
then
of mice and men.
Yeah. It is a Lenny Mouse situation. And then they both jump up at once, and they're like, kidding. Wouldn't that be funny if I died in front of you?
Yeah, we always do this play murder.
Yeah. It's like truly insane. So there's a fair amount of like stupid little brother pranks in here, but like this doesn't even make fucking sense.
Yeah. And then they look out the window, and of course, Buster is in that garden.
That's right. And what's he doing there? Busting. Busting the melons open.
That's right.
Yeah. And, you know, Mr. McCall, does he see him at this point?
They blow the dog whistle. So Joe has this dog whistle, which is a great important plot point that we need to say right at the beginning for no reason whatsoever.
Nope. Won't
Doesn't
come
matter.
back around again.
Well, so he blows it, and at that point, Buster will stop what he's doing and run back. Shit happens. They go out to the garden, and Mr. McCall sees the dog in the garden and fucking loses it and says perhaps the best quote. He just says to them, he's like, "If I catch him sniffing my melons."
Ladies, you know how... No.
Don't sniff melons
Don't do it,
without consent.
you dogs.
So the dad says, yeah, whatever. We'll keep my dog to me and you do your shit. And they're like portrayed as buddies at this point. Like, yeah, they have this garden war, but they're friendly.
Yeah.
And it's at that point that the dad goes back to say, hey, you want to check out our tomatoes? And that's when we meet the Red Queen.
The Red Queen.
His biggest tomato, which
Oh,
Dad
that's right.
acts like a weird pervert about.
Yeah, there's probably like 1.5 to 2 inch holes in the Red Queen on various sides. And you know how some people eat tomatoes with mayonnaise?
No.
Some people like roast
On a sandwich?
Yeah, on a sandwich. Or some people like roast tomatoes with mayonnaise. It's a very like white people thing. I've never done it, but I'll just stop there.
I'm just thinking like a Jimmy John's sandwich.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Jimmy John's.
But he loves those fucking tomatoes, and isn't he gonna enter like a gardening contest or something?
Yeah, it's gonna be McCall's cassava melons,
Right.
versus Dad's Red Queen.
Juicy reds.
So they spray pesticides. Dad has this weird fit, and they're like, Dad just started moaning in the garden, and I'm like, well, that's a weird verb.
Oh, man.
And it
Told
was
you
because
about the holes.
Yeah, he saw one fruit fly and forgot that they bought pesticides, so they just give it a spritz. And then Dad's like, you know what? Let's celebrate this shit. Let's go to Lawn Lovely.
Yeah, that's right.
But before that, Mom comes out, and they're like, Mom's pretty cool. She's a graphic artist on the computer.
Ah,
And I was like,
I'll bet she uses what else? Windows 95.
Well, it had just debuted, so who knows?
That's right.
She's probably ready to do that upload with like 8 floppy disks, take a year.
Yeah. Make a
But, like,
BMP.
Mom, what did you think of Mom?
I didn't really even get an impression. She was fine.
I had this impression that Mom really felt trapped and wanted her own life and career and no longer wanted to be part of this family.
Okay. I could see that.
I think there's more of it later because it's just to the point where she's just losing it every time Dad brings home a new lawn ornament.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and how could you not be opposed to that?
Yeah.
It's insane.
So anyway, Mom is just like, hey, I'm trying to do computer graphics upstairs. Can you quiet the fuck down?
Yeah.
And Dad is just so into the garden that you can tell that he's probably never kissed her melons.
No, it'd never been sniffed. That's the name of that movie.
Because on their lawn are 2 flamingos, a concrete angel, a chrome ball on a platform.
I hate the ball.
You hate the ball?
It makes no sense.
No, they have those in gardens sometimes.
I hate it. I don't understand it.
It's still bad, but people have those in gardens.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Plaster skunks, a fountain with kissing swans, and a plaster deer, who he named after the lady who works at Lawn Lovely.
Dear Lila.
Oh, her name is Lila, yeah.
Yeah.
Dear Lila, what's it like in New York City?
Hey there, dear Lila, what's it like inside my butthole? Did you tell all my friends that I am going to struggle with this dick?
I was just thinking, I'm like, how far are we going to go with this?
I am upset and I feel sick.
So in my notes here, it says the lawn ornament obsession is breaking apart his marriage. And there is a Lawn Lovely, which is a lawn store that's 2 blocks away, so they're going to walk that way.
Yeah. Yep. It's very close.
And even though, but we forget Joe is a fat piece of shit, so he uses his sweatiness to attack his sister by rubbing his sweat on her.
I mean, what a psycho.
I hate him.
Yeah, he sucks. But they get there, and Delilah is there, who's the old lady who owns the place, and Joe's dad is like their best customer because he's got all this ugly shit, and he keeps her in business. And so he's like, I'm celebrating today, and he's looking at different weird stuff, and of course they come across the lawn gnomes, and he picks those bad boys up, and then he humiliates his kids by like making them bring it to their dedicated spots and carry it across the lawn. Wasn't there like the neighbors are laughing at
literally pointing and laughing as they drag these concrete gnomes
like
across. And also the place too is like a dump. Like there's holes in the porch and like the windows are broken. It's like a fucked up bright pink. It's like a haunted house, but it's painted bright pink.
Yeah, because like, Joe's dad's garden budget is like, making them lose their home and take out a second mortgage and stuff.
And this lady is like, well, not their house, dear Lila's house.
Oh, okay.
Lawn Lovely.
That's right.
Because
she
like lives
a pink shithole.
Yeah, and she lives in it. It's like her house.
Yeah, she lives upstairs.
Because it's a pink haunted house, this is a weird... I don't know if I said this fun fact. Do you know the Munsters?
Sure.
That their house, back in the day, the set was all hot pink.
Oh, really?
Bright pink, yeah. Because if they did it gray, it wouldn't show up that way. There wouldn't be enough contrast on the set in black and white TV.
Okay, that's interesting.
So if you Google the Munsters house, you'll see it's all shades of pink and purple because that showed up gloomier in black and white TV.
That's cool.
And that's a fun fact for everybody about pink haunted houses.
Coraline's house is also pink. The Pink Palace.
The Pink Palace.
Yep.
So they make it home from that deaf lady's house.
That's right. And, their dad loves the gnomes. Basically wants to replace his children with the gnomes. Mm-hmm. And names them Hap and Chip.
Hap is the fucking worst name ever.
It's very stupid. It's because he looks happy. Yeah. And then Chip is because he's got like a chip in his tooth or something.
Yeah. I'm going to name you Horn.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
And I'll be...
Knee.
Yeah. Yeah, so Mindy's like, oh, those are evil. And,
yeah.
Like
they're horrendous.
Because, like, their backstory is just like, these are from Europe. I got them all the way from Europe. And he's like, these are some squatch-looking gnomes.
Yeah. I love them.
And she's like, you can't tell that they're evil. And then Moose comes over, and him and Joe practice their tag team wrestling moves on the gnomes. And then Moose is like, let's tickle them. Which is reinforcing the whole Lenny, Mice and Men Moose. He's like, tickle.
Yeah.
Like, listen, if you need to listen to the audiobook, that's how our good friend Glick decided to do it. He's like, we do tickle now.
It's amazing. And they do, just like it's a normal thing. They tickle the statues. It's amazing. But after they're, tickling them and jerking them off and stuff, they
do a couple, 3Ds through tables.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they put
on Get the Table.
WWF Volume 4 from the garage, and they give them some stunners.
They practice walking out through the shed.
Yeah.
They do their entrances.
Which sounds pretty cool, actually.
We should do that.
We should.
We probably have.
Thank you, producer Chib, feeding me bacon. But then Joe.
These remote These remote ones suck.
'Cause
Right now, I'd be getting bacon.
you would be getting bacon. Nom, 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 nom. And when Joe finishes tickling them, he's walking away and he thinks he sees one of the gnomes' face change.
Yeah. It looks like his face is screaming.
That's right. Like he's surprised from the tickling.
Yeah. And so basically what happens is the dog gets into the other yard, starts sniffing up them melons, so he tweets the whistle. Dog runs over, starts giving Hap a good lick down.
Yeah.
And then it looks like he's screaming. So this, of course, is not normal and fucking horrifying. So he calls over his dad, and the face is back to normal.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about this story with the gnomes is that
Not much.
not
much at all.
Absolutely. Which is why my good and bad section hardly exists.
Yeah.
But it's that there's no moment where things get like magical for the gnomes. Like there's no Barack Obama, Madonna Malama words that are spoken. The gnomes are just like
Always magic.
yeah.
But also, it really doesn't make sense. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But then that night, of course, because there's gnomes, somebody smashed a melon.
Yeah.
And, of course, McCall blames it on the dog.
Right.
It's unfair, but Buster has to be tied up in the back, which upsets Joe.
Yeah.
So Joe mows the lawn, and Moose comes over and wants to play ring toss. So they start tossing rings at the gnomes. And that's when he finds some seed in the mouths of the gnomes.
That's right. There's seed all over all over the gnome's mouth and in his teeth. And,
Cassava melons have seed in it.
Yeah, they sure do.
Wait, how do you pluralize seed? Seeds. Seed? Seeds. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's seeds all over their mouths.
And you know how some people cook cassava melons and they fill them with mayonnaise?
No.
Oh. Well, me neither. And the seed on the face of the gnome is very compelling to Joe only. Nobody else gives a shit.
Yeah.
So, whatever. Joe's seen like a couple weird things, and he suspects the gnome sort of in the back of his mind.
Yeah.
But
that's crazy.
It's crazy, yeah. So, stuff basically like we could chop a lot of this down where it's like stuff keeps happening, like mischievous things at night, like
and he's always in the worst spot. Like that night, he hears his dog crying, so he goes outside and he sees 2 raccoons, and he's like, "Shit, it was the raccoons."
Right.
And Mindy catches him outside, and it's like, "What the fuck are you doing out here?" And he's like, "Oh, the dog was crying." So they go back inside. The next day, they walk out, and there are faces painted onto all the melons.
That's right.
And then that fucking narc Mindy was just like, "Well, Joe was outside last night."
Yeah. And Joe's like, "Well, yeah, I was like just petting the dog," and Joe's dad is like, It's way too early in the morning to have a conversation about masturbation. So he gets grounded for weeks with no, due process. And then
there's paint on the damn gnome's hands.
And there's paint on the gnome's hands, or black ink on the gnome's hands. So Joe is like being pushed farther and farther to this theory that the gnomes are somehow alive.
And nobody will listen to him. Dad's like, "Stop it." Mom is sick of his shit and hates her family and wants to live on her own.
To pursue her dreams finally.
Yeah. And then while he's getting yelled at and mowing the lawn, the gnomes literally like whisper to him. They're like, hey, fuck you.
That's right. They have they're described as having like old smokers' voices.
Yeah.
So the next thing that happens is Joe's dad's tomatoes are destroyed. They're all squished into ketchup, and he blames
the gnomes.
Well, Joe blames
the
gnomes, but Joe's dad blames Mr. McCall. So this is
fucked.
One of the best parts of the book where Joe's dad goes over to Mr. McCall and throws tomato pulp on him and goes, "Digest this."
Joe's dad has terrible puns and sucks.
Yep.
He obviously is like, I always say that, like, I'm one head injury away from, like, being one of those train set dads.
Sure, just locked in the basement working on your trains.
Yeah, like, I'm gonna be like Will Ferrell's character from a Lego movie. Like, I'm gonna have like a whole Lego structure downstairs, and
Yeah.
my wife is just gonna be like upset and graphic designing on Windows 95, and I'm just gonna be downstairs just trying to get, like, you know, I'm like, oh, I need to make sure that the arcade is built in my Lego town.
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
It is, yeah, but it would be way cooler if you know, are only using 10% of your brain.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at that point, it's just kind of like, that's it. Moose is no longer allowed to hang out with Joe. Joe is in deep shit. The war is started between McCall and Dad, and now nobody can compete in the garden.
Yeah.
Shit. But
everybody's pissed.
But this is not gonna stop. Joe.
Yeah.
So Joe, in the end, goes outside, and at this point is looking for the gnomes because he sees that they disappear, and he gets attacked by Moose.
Our boy Moose.
And they start wrestling, which awakens their parents.
Yep.
And they decide, hey, we're going to do a stakeout. I'm going to prove to you that the gnomes are alive. So they go out one night, and oh wait, we forgot then other stuff happens. They wrestle that same night. McCall's truck is covered in white paint.
Yeah.
So of course they blame it on Moose and Joe.
Yeah.
So they go, and that night they see the gnomes come into life, and they throw black paint all over the house.
Yeah, that was an appalling moment.
Which they never bring up ever again.
No, they don't resolve that at all. Like, even after the resolution, like, presumably Joe or Moose is going to get blamed. Like, you know, whenever the parents see that, they're going to be, like, beside themselves.
Yeah. They ruined this guy's truck.
They ruined his
a
truck.
House.
And then the house, which was freshly painted. My cat is just... Every cord I have is being destroyed right now. Yeah, so... the house was freshly painted, and yeah, now it's got black paint all over it.
So they decide, because the house is getting fucked up, Moose is like, they're tiny. Let's just fucking kick their asses.
Yeah.
So they go to tackle them.
Very funny.
Yeah, and so they go to tackle them, and Moose trips over Buster's cord, and they see him. Mindy's like, the fuck's going on? Walks outside in her robe, and the gnomes just steal her.
They're immediately distracted and decide to steal her.
They pick her up and just run down the street with her. So they have to chase the sister, and they stop, and they're like, no, we just wanted to get your attention. We're actually mischief gnomes, which is a special type of gnome that only does mischief. We like kind of have to, but we were stolen from our homes in Europe.
Yeah.
And we are forced into slavery, where we have to pretend to be garden ornaments, and our brothers are also slaves at Lawn Lovely in the basement, but they're too short to open the door or get out. So it's like real bad, and we need your help. And let's go and steal them back now. Yeah,
and there's a few problems with this. One is, again, RL loves like when these magical inanimate objects are actually slaves. That's like a big thing. He's a big fan of like pretend slavery.
Yeah,
and
that's why he wrote those books about periods. He was just like, man, slaves could really build.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, all the books set in Egypt, he loved it. Yeah, The second thing is, like, there's no specificity to this story. It's like, well, we used to live in a magical forest, and then we were stolen by question mark and like
by Europeans, I bet.
Yeah, and like
sent to America.
There's no like explanation in the story, so you're like, okay, this is a little dubious. And but the kids just automatically agree. They get over the fact that they're speaking to inanimate objects pretty quickly, and are convinced that they're harmless, and they go back to Lawn Lovely, which, as we noted, is like just a walk away, and they get into the basement.
Also, weird detail, Mindy's like, I'm only in my robe, I'm not even dressed. And they're like,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter. So like a naked sister is also walking down the street with them to fight gnomes.
Yeah.
Which was like, just leave that detail out.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's in their pajamas. You don't have to be like, I'm only wearing a robe. I'm not dressed.
Yeah.
Like, why?
It's weird. It's unnecessary.
Yeah. Also, she's one of the oldest characters we've had as kids. She's 14.
That's right. Yeah.
That was strange. She has side adventures where she goes sunbathing and shit. No one cares.
Yeah.
She has a friend at one point that doesn't
yeah.
matter at all.
Right.
There's like 2 chapters that we should just rip out of the book.
Yeah.
So they lower themselves into the basement, and the gnomes run away because they're trying to be sneaky. They don't want to be caught by Lila.
Right.
And then they're like, we need to find the light. So they turn on the light, and there's just a mob of gnomes.
There's a ton of gnomes. Like the
and
whole
they
basement.
all instantly just start beating the shit out of these children.
Yeah. They mostly what they do is like they shout ideas of what they can do to the kids, and the winners of the collective, democracy that they have is to either tickle or dribble them.
Or fold them.
Yes, correct.
They love folding humans into tiny little squares.
Yeah, they love defying, all physics, and I guess they're gonna like be tickled to death is the threat. And then Buster shows up, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing?" And then he's not helpful at all, and he just walks away.
And then they get Buster back again, and they're like, "No, Buster will be here this time."
Yeah.
And then he walks away again.
Yeah, and the idea is like, well, the gnomes were previously scared of the dog, so if the dog comes down here, like, we'll have the upper hand. That doesn't work out. But then Joe's like, well, I have the whistle, and Buster obeys the whistle, so let me do that real quick. And the gnomes are now wise to it. So now they're like, fighting for the whistle, and it's being kicked all over. And, Yakety Sax plays in the background. And then Joe finally gets it, and he blows it, and does nothing for Buster, but all the gnomes freeze in place.
Yeah.
So all this time...
There's one point where Hap, they're like, tries to stomp the whistle and destroy it.
Yeah.
But he dives and grabs it, and they're like, the hard stone foot thuds right next to his head. And I'm like, that would have went real dark if, like, his head just gets popped by,
like a casaba?
Because I just thought, like, what happens if you just stomp as hard as you can on someone's head? They're gonna die.
Nothing good.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty
So,
brutal.
So they do the whistle, and everyone freezes.
Yeah.
As you said.
Yes.
And that's like...
That's basically the book.
Yeah. Moose wants to tell his parents, and they're like, hey, no one's going to believe us. And Moose is just like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, you know what would have been smart, you fucking idiots? Like, in every book, the plan is always like, let's spy on this magic thing that's happening, and we'll just, like, run at it. It's never like, well, my dad has a camcorder. Let me, like, pop that VHS tape in there and get these bad boys on tape, It's always like, should we go tickle them?
And then the next day, Dad's upset that the gnomes are gone, disregards that his house is covered in black paint.
Yes.
And they decide to go to Lawn Lovely, and he buys a life-size gorilla, because apparently his garden is now a miniature golf course.
That's right. Yeah. And you know where he's got 18 holes? In one of those tomatoes.
And he's like, I like these way more than those gnomes. And then the gorilla winks at Joe.
That's right. Yeah, we have a stupid winking gorilla at the end. The big gorilla, too. It's like 8 feet tall or some shit.
Some shit. But the thing that's better is in the TV show, Joe decides there's no dog to be blamed on it. So it's all blamed on Joe. And every time he pops out into Major McCall's yard, the lights go on and get him. So he's going to prove that the gnomes are doing all this shit. So he takes his dad's camcorder.
Oh.
And is filming them out the window and films them running, but realizes the tape isn't in it.
Oh
so he puts the tape in and goes outside and brings his sister. Then they call all the gnomes out of nowhere, and they try to attack him. And they run out into McCall's yard, and the lights go on, and they automatically freeze. And they learn from with like shining the flashlight on them that they freeze in the light.
Oh,
so they only come alive at night. Then Mr. McCall picks up the gnomes and carries them back to their yard when they run away and go to bed.
Okay.
And that's how it ends. But then it's the judging of the lawn thing, and they're like, you have such like a whimsical yard, it's beautiful, and you mix like such like a fantasy thing with real life, and he's like, well, I'm so happy that I won. And they're like, oh, you didn't win. You have like the ugliest fucking lawn ornament I've ever seen. Yeah. And they're like, the gnomes? And they're like, no, the gnomes are adorable. It's this monstrosity. And they go back to a back corner behind a bush, and it's Mr. McCall as like a fucked up, horrific lawn gnome.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Which I think is a better ending.
Yeah. It's scarier.
They got the revenge, and they didn't run away. The gnomes are still there, so they're still a threat. But, I mean, the thing with this book, too, is that, is there a sequel? There might be later, but not in the original series.
Yeah.
Because the lawn gnomes just freeze every time he blows the whistle, which he does twice during the book. Before the final thing. Like, so not only does he, unless they're trapped in the basement and they can't get out, but like there's that many, they can climb on each other's shoulders. They're pretty apt.
Yeah, and the place is not far away, and they know where Joe lives.
Yeah, so they're gonna fucking kill them in their sleep, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
So, all right.
Anyway,
what's your good?
My good. The first thing I want to mention is. Toward the end of the book, let me just find it real quick. Toward the end of the book, when the gnomes are confronted and they're like, oh, we mean you no harm. And we're like, we're mischief elves. And on page 93, it says, we're mischief elves. We do mischief. That's our mission in life, Hap explained. Wherever there is mischief in the world, we're there, Chip added. Mischief is our job. We can't help ourselves. He bent down and broke off a chunk of the concrete curb. Then he pulled open the mailbox across from us and shoved the piece of concrete inside. See? I can't help myself. I have to do mischief wherever I go. It's like so truly stupid. He bends down, breaks off a piece of the curb, which I guess is kind of fucked up and intimidating because he just like broke stone in half with one hand. And then he like puts it in a mailbox. It's like it's like what I imagine like Jared Leto's Joker does, and then like proclaims
pretty
himself
much
an agent of chaos. That's basically it. There's some decent gnome description when they first see them, but who fucking cares? Like, this book is down the middle. I'm finding myself now like so fatigued at the idea of isolating good things and bad things. I'm fatigued on the good things because I really have to search for them, and I'm fatigued on the bad things because I could really just say like the book. And and we do it so much, but
we do, but still,
but So there's some decent gnome description. I will also say so the flip side to the breaking off curb and putting it somewhere is when they described actually seeing the gnomes take the paint and throw it on the house, which they made a point of like saying, we just got the house painted. To get the exterior of like a house painted, I mean, is thousands and thousands of dollars. So to do that and then have the gnomes like totally fuck it up I did like shake my head when I read it.
Yeah,
it was successful. So
and the house, like the car.
And the car.
What do you do when someone pours paint on your car?
I mean, you have to like get it refinished or something, or
like what about the windows, like and everything?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. How about you?
So I liked on page 2, he talks so much shit about how good he is at ping pong, and then Mindy comes in and she's like, kicking it doesn't count. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just like he talks himself up so much.
Yeah.
And then you get like the reality of what's actually happening. I love that on page 9, when you realize that like Joe plays his own game through everything. Moose swung Mindy's paddle around wildly in the air. He missed the hanging lamp by an inch. Ready for a real game, Joe? He threw the ping pong ball into the air and drew his powerful arm back. Wham! The ball rocketed across the room. It bounced off 2 walls and flew back over the net toward me. Cool, I exclaimed. I dove for the ball. Moose has an amazing serve.
Oh my God.
It's like, it reminded me because a friend of the podcast, Carl, who is on, we went to this like arcade place, and you could like buy time just to play ping pong in this netted room, and we literally played like that because we couldn't keep it on the table. So as long as you could get it to the other side of the room, it was in. And I was like drenched in sweat after because we were playing like that. So yeah, so I thought that was very funny. Moose's voice is horrifying, but Moose is a good character in the book. If I catch him sniffing my melons, I loved. I love the shitty description of Lawn Lovely, how it's like this ramshackle hut.
Yeah.
I like the descriptive words of the gnomes, the building and different things. They use like crooked and jutted and like a lot of words that kind of make everything just seem a little out of place. I love that it's when its smile disappeared as if it was trying to scream. I thought that was horrifying and good. This is the best line in the entire book. It's about like being afraid with the gnomes after he saw that. It's just real short, but it's great. I shivered in the heat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's awesome.
It works. You
just
get
like
it right away.
The shiver of the cold, but it's like it's the summer day. And I thought that was like so short but said so much, and it was really good writing. So way to go, RLS. And I like the sharp smell of vinegar in the basement.
That's nice.
It was pretty cool. Yeah. All right. So what about your bad? Did you just say the whole book?
Pretty much. I mean, I do think it was fine. And, it's just like the difference I noticed with this book is, again, there's no... I know he would just... It probably wouldn't be a good realization, but and for him to actually put it in, it probably wouldn't be satisfactory, but I want more explanation of like why they're alive, and then also as we were just discussing, like the resolution also isn't satisfactory because like they're still there, like nothing changes unless they stay that way, like after the whistle is blown. There's no like true clarity.
That's true.
I also just want to note that Joe also likes to garden, and he notes that he makes his own special soil.
He sure does.
Yeah.
Pooping.
I was going to say, I wrote in parentheses with a question mark, shit?
Pretty much. They just feed him weird things, and he shits it into the garden.
Yeah.
I didn't like the fact is, I'm not anything like my family, which is fine. Me, I'm not organized. I'm cool.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks he's a riot. Again, like old talk. When he says something about himself, Mindy's just like, "Where'd you learn that? A bubblegum comic?" Just like, what?
Pass.
The description of Dad moaning because there's fruit flies is really weird. He's just like, he just stood there moaning, which is like, I don't think of someone like being like, oh no.
Yeah.
I just think of him just being like, like it's so weird.
Right.
And then at one point they talk about how Dad went on a business trip and he bought a shirt for Mom that said, "I missed you," but like missed as in a gardening pun.
Oh yeah.
Which not only is that a terrible pun, but also, how does that fucking exist? Like, he goes to a special gardening pun shop to buy a shirt while he's, like, away. That sucks. Dad clapped us both on the back, which is weird. When they're in the gnome fight, Moose shot out a thick leg. Which was
There's a lot
so
of
weird.
describing him as, like, a big, meaty, thick boy.
He's a thick boy. I love when they're yelling at each other on page 66. He says, "Your son wrecked your tomatoes just as he wrecked my melons."
Right. Natural.
And then I think a lot of it's just bullshit filler. Like how there's so many pages of just Buster going to the window and then leaving. And then the next chapter, it's like he shows up again, but then leaves. Or how they introduce like Mindy's whole side fun with Deirdre, her friend, and they go to the beach or the pool. It's all filler. I feel like he just needed to get to the page count for some, which can't blame him. He had so many books doing one a month, but all right. So what was your top spook and scare? We're going to do our ending.
Yeah. Spook and scare, I would say, is the sweat attack that you described, which made me physically recoil in horror. And it says on page 25, Mindy was right. It was hot, but get serious. It was only a 2-block walk. I'm hotter than you are, I teased. Then I leaned into Mindy and shook my sweaty head at her. See?
Oof.
I mean, you're a fucking serial killer, right?
Yeah, nightmare.
That's terrible. How about you?
I'm gonna say when the face changed.
Yeah, there
When
was
you
a
just look down at
spookiness
a
to
gnome
that.
and they're screaming. It's like as if it's trying to scream. Like that's an inanimate object screaming. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Best dressed?
Best dressed, I would say the cute gnome boys. And I would say specifically, not even at the beginning. On page 29, there is decent gnome description when we first see them. But then on page 85, it says, this is when they're spying on the gnomes to see if they come to life. He didn't finish his sentence. His mouth dropped open and his eyes nearly popped out of his pudgy head. I peered into the shrubs in time to see the gnomes come to life. They stretched their arms over their heads and stroked their chins. They shook out their legs and smoothed their shirts. It's very cute. They're kind of like doing
cute.
a little dance to... yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
Mine goes to Dad with his pun garden shirt that just said, "I'm all thumbs in the garden," and it had 2 thumbs up on it.
Yeah, that's great.
Alternate title?
Alternate title, I just wrote Tickle Boys. There's just so much tickling.
Mine's Blame It on the Dog.
Sure. I mean...
Because, people, that's like a joke for farting.
Yeah.
Like you fart
Yeah.
and you blame it on the dog.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to call it, Blame It on the Dog.
Cool.
And now, the Carl Germ special, Where's the Witch?
Where's the witch?
So where's the witch in this one?
It's tough. I think ultimately the witch is Joe's dad because he's the one who gets them into this mess in the first place. So he brings the magic to them. And in that way, I think he is the most witchy.
I'm going to go with Lila. I think Lila's the witch. She lives in a haunted house that's destroyed. She has a basement full of magical creatures that are alive.
Compelling.
And, also has a magic gorilla. So she's a witch enchanting these things and sending them out to ruin people's lives.
That's fair. Yeah, we could also say Europe.
Of course.
Yeah.
Europe was lousy with witches.
Yeah.
You know that we had, like, the Salem witch trial here in America?
I've heard of it.
But, like, it was way worse in Europe.
Yeah,
like,
it was
ours,
like
we
constant.
talk about a lot, and like Arthur Miller wrote about it and shit. But
Yeah.
like there, like people were just getting killed as witches constantly.
Yeah.
It was just all the rage.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that tracks, right? Because it was just Native American people here until 16 whatever, and then as soon as we could just move to a new environment, we killed witches over here wherever we could do it.
Pretty much, yeah. So we're like a minute and 15 in. Do we want to do a death or do we want to save them? We have 3 left. Let's save it.
Okay.
Let's save it. I don't have the inspiration anymore. This book drained me.
Oh, I feel so drained. I feel like
and
an overcomer.
next time, we're gonna need to have all of our energy for the shocker next week.
Oh man, that shocker on Shock Street. Oh, I moved to Shock Street once, and I had so many shockers. I don't know. I reached out to Dane Cook, and he understood when I talked about shockers. He just totally understood. And you know what
I bet
you know what he said to me?
He jumped up and down and made a funny face.
He sure did.
What did he say?
He said, "Get this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
2 in the pink, 1 in the stink." That's what he said.
So I'm looking at my FaceTime right now, and Matthew is crying.
You can see the tears from there.
I can see the tears. Go eat your sandwich.
Yeah, I do have a sandwich here.
Go eat your sandwich. Enjoy it. Enjoy your Sunday with your wife.
Thank you.
And that's it. Boo dudes.
Boo dudes.
Don't
Bye. Don't die.
Also, like, they never revenged. What did they ever do to the gnomes? I guess when they wrestled them.
Yeah, they tickled them. The dog licked them. Yeah, it's not conclusive.
Yeah, but I've been licked by dogs and played wrestled with people, and I didn't destroy their homes.
That's true.
But then again, I'm not a mischief Dave.
No,
I'm just the normal one.
Standard issue Dave.
Yep. Well, boo dudes, fuck off.
Fuck off. Bye.